Kill one off the Doritos. I'm killing you.
D1. I got D1. Oh, what a snap. D1. Watch the W.
I just need that hat now to complete the set. Got one off the snake. Good. Give you one. Kill the snake corner. The snake corner, the home, kill the home.
Oh!
There it is.
Wow,
Headshot on the move, baby.
Everybody do what?
Yeah.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Shacknews Twitch channel. Today is the 7th day of July, they tell me. The year is 2020 still. Thank you for joining us here for an extra special stream today. We've got a live developer interview with the team behind Snapshot VR. We're here with our host for the festivities today, Asif Khan. What's up?
Well, hey, everybody. E4 continues into the month of July because, like we said, we didn't buy a booth this year, so we didn't have to stop doing things like we would at E3. So we're going to continue doing our jobs all summer long, which brings us to today's interview with Giant Scam. We have Jesse and Tanner joining us from Giant Scam. So thank you for spending some of your summer with us here at Shacknews.
Yeah, happy to do it. Thanks for having us.
And so Snapshot VR is an arena shooter in VR, right?
Yeah.
I was watching that trailer as we went live, and I got these like American Gladiators vibes from your art style. Is there any? Were you guys fans of that show growing up?
Let me throw it to Tanner. Tanner does all of our art assets. Let's see.
I would say I was heavily inspired by American Gladiators as a child. They fashioned many Nerf battle arenas out after that show. Yeah,
because I got that vibe from just the arena that I was looking at, and just even the shapes of the things that you can hide behind. They're very reminiscent of Assault in American Gladiators specifically.
Man, maybe we should pivot. see if we can get some licensing in the next 2 weeks.
Cross
Add
promotion
some
going
tennis
on.
balls and leotards, and you'll be good to go.
You don't need to pivot. You just need some DLC, right?
Yeah, exactly. Rescan.
That's it.
Yeah. So let's talk about it. How long have you been working on Snapshot VR?
Yeah, about a year and 3 months ish. We this was an idea that came up 3 weeks before GDC 2019. We were like, we don't have anything to pitch, but we're going. Maybe we should like build something to talk to people about. And we put a real bare bones multiplayer demo together. Went out there, showed it to some people, and decided to keep going with it from there.
Mm-hmm. And when you decide to make this game, what engine do you choose? Were you already proficient in one, or because it seems like that's a big deal when making a VR game, having the tool set available to you to actually make a multiplayer game, you know?
Yeah, just familiarity with the engine was a big thing for us. Tanner and I released a rhythm game, a VR rhythm game called Chop It a couple years ago, and we used Unity for that. We were pretty open to switching to Unreal at first, but we made it a little bit too far down the development line before talking with Epic, and at that point it just wasn't worth the porting of everything over to Unreal. So we're pretty open to using Unreal in the future, but we're a Unity shop at the moment.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily an engine that's known for online multiplayer games, so I was just curious if you ran any issues with that.
Yeah, no kidding, man. So not to be controversial, but UNet has been a mess for as long as I can remember. That's Unity's proprietary stuff. And they're redoing a lot of that now, so I think it'll get better along with their ECS and kind of the different ways they're heading. But we actually have implemented the Netcode stack twice completely already. We implemented it in Photon Pun at first, and then I did a 3-month migration to another product called Bolt. And it's still Netcode is tricky, man, and no one really does it perfectly. No one does it in a way that works for everyone's use case.
Well, it's super tricky, not just in VR. It's even more tricky because you can break immersion so easily if someone lags out, or if it's one of those super important things, I think, for presence, for immersion, to not feel disconnected. And I think that's an even bigger challenge when making a VR game, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. We use inverse kinematics, which animates your body based on your head and hands. A lot of multiplayer VR games do this, but we found so many peculiarities about networking head and hands. And what if like the netcode or the net position for your camera rig comes in before your head and hands, and then you kind of like Superman fly across the arena to catch up? And like there are just so many little tricky parts to it.
Yeah, no, that's. I mean, I think it's a really interesting challenge that people don't think about when playing a VR game online. I'm always kind of blown away when I'm hanging out with someone in a virtual space. How many people can play Snapshot at the same time, like in a game?
Yeah, Tanner, you want to take this one, man?
Yeah. So we're designing the gameplay around 5v5 matches. I think the most we've had in during testing was 12 people at once, and it ran fairly smoothly. We had a few people on slower connections, but it was still playable. But we're really focused on the 5v5 gameplay.
Okay, and is it a death match? Is it objectives? Is it a combination of those two things, or how should people look at it?
So it's the game mode in it. The core game mode is heavily inspired by professional paintball in the U.S. And that is, there's no health bar. It's one hit, you're out, and it's team elimination or capture the other guy's bunker on the other side of the field. Jesse actually played paintball professionally for a while, so he might be able to tell you a little bit more about the finer details there.
Yeah, thanks for that setup there, so I can brag about my career as a teenager as a paintball player. I'm sure everyone is impressed. But yeah, I played competitively for about 10 years, from about 14 to just after grad school, and yeah, that's the format that you're seeing in the trailer is essentially how professional paintball runs today, which
Okay.
is 5v5, very quick matches, 1 to 2 minute points. And then you just get a few seconds to kind of ready up for the next point, and you do that again. And it can either be time based or up to a certain round limit. In our case, you play 5 rounds in a match, so it's super fast, in and out, and then you kind of adjust and go play the next one.
No, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh, my bad. I had a question, paintball specific. You mentioned that you were pretty serious business into the sport. I got some friends that have been into it in the past. Does the game have any equivalent of spending thousands of dollars and making legal and possibly illegal mods to your setup and then showing said setup off to other people and all that goes
Yeah.
along with that?
Well, it wouldn't be a game by giant scam if we didn't have some way to manipulate the consumer. So I think we'll definitely have like a market for. We have a free market right now for cosmetics, and by that I mean all cosmetics are free right now. We have an ownership model for like streamers, or what we did for our alpha is the top 5 kill count leaders from alpha. We made a custom item for those 5 players that only they can wear. But we could definitely see that turning into an in-game currency type of situation where, of course, that's where we'll introduce our kind of typical pyramid schemes and the things that we like to do with the games that Giant Scam releases.
Awesome.
How long has Giant Scam been scamming people? Oh, I'm sorry. No, I mean, how long have you been in business for?
Yeah, we've been in business for about, I guess, 3 years, give or take, right now. And started, my buddy who I co-founded it with, we used to make YouTube videos together back in the day, and he moved to Nashville and wanted to learn to code. And I'm computer science background, so I was like, hey, well, let's try making a game together. And that's how Chop It came to be. And that was our first game ever, so it took us forever. Like, it's fully featured, but it's a pretty basic rhythm game made in Unity, and it took us like 2 years plus to make, learning all the ropes. But yeah, we've been going for, I guess, about 3 years now, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Now, I'm kind of curious about Locomotion in Snapshot VR. Did you experiment? Because I feel like VR is kind of settling on the thumbstick, right? As like, okay, it works for regular video games, it works for us. Sure, there's teleportation in some games, how did you look at that? Because with the shooter, it's going to involve running around a lot, right?
Totally. Yeah, you can ask Tanner. I hate joystick locomotion with a passion. I hate it. But people will complain if it's not there. So what I started with actually was a proprietary system we call Puppet, which never smoothly moves the camera. So like I used to get motion sick playing VR even as a VR developer. So this one was like point and click where I want to go. My body is going to run on a path to that spot, but my camera is going to stay in place and it'll like shoot where I shoot. It'll duck if I duck, so on and so forth. So we have that mode. I then made a hybrid of that mode and joystick where same concept, point and click where I want to go, run on a path, but it'll bring your camera with you. So you have like that real-time view as you go. And that's super popular now because that one probably plays the most like Paintball, where it's like, I have to be very intentional about this decision to move from here to this next place. And it's going to be risky while I do it. And then we have joystick. Joystick is nerfed a little bit. It's a little bit slower than the other modes. And that's just to avoid basically what we call like the Call of Duty stutter, where people are just kind of like doing this up and down the field. We want people to have that freedom to use joystick if we want, but we have to manage it to where it plays like a competitive sport and not like some of these more arcadey shooters.
It's funny you mentioned that stutter because that's, Shacknews started as a Quake fan site 24 years ago, and that stutter is very much present even back in Quake, which with the A and D keys, right?
Yeah, totally. I used to play Counter-Strike all the time, and like I get it.
No, that's a thing. I like that you know that's what people were going to do, so you figured out a way to like try to prevent that from happening. I actually appreciate that. For so many reasons, this sounds interesting to me because I don't like these battle royale games that take 40 minutes to play or 20 minutes to play. This is like 2-minute matches, which is perfect for me, and it's fast paced, and it's got some American Gladiators inspiration going on. So I'm really intrigued. We do have some gameplay that we could show everyone. Should we kick that off?
Yeah, I think so. So I just did like last night, jumped in single player and walked through some of the basic features to show off, and then we'll have some B-roll we can just have playing in the background from there if that works for y'all.
Yeah. Chris, you want to fire that off?
Just fired it up.
Sweet.
Cool. Is it playing now?
Yeah.
It is.
So I should be doing this asynchronously. It's going to be interesting, but I should be in the lobby here. Snapshot. I'm wearing my giant scam cowboy hat, of course.
Nice.
I am the tech boy. Those are all of our KD stats. These are actually cross-platform, so no matter if you're on Viveport or Steam or the Oculus Store or whatever, all of your stats are tracked globally. These are some of the cosmetics we made for our top 5 alpha players and some of the different combinations you can do. We did some holiday specials as well, like super early in alpha days.
Pumpkin head, spoopy head.
Yeah, exactly.
Our first cosmetic was Swoopy Head.
That's great. That's excellent work there.
Yeah.
And Scammer's hat. That's a very appropriate name for that.
That's me. So as you can see, I'm actually third in my own video game, behind Shiva and Elmo. Those two players have been playing with us for many alpha versions.
Shiva 2.5 kill death ratio.
He's a machine. Yeah, I'll tell you something about Shiva after this. But
Sure.
So here we're loaded into a game. You can see the arena. We got banners. Nothing, we're not trying to sell you anything with the banners, but we have some banners there to make it feel a little bit more like a sports arena. Got your gun there. Shoot off some shots. We have actually a little mini map as well. And people use this mini map in between matches to kind of strategize where they're going to go. And we also, instead of having like a kill cam, we draw kills from the previous round in a miniature form on the mini map. You can see some of the locomotion modes we're showing off here. You can see kind of how, when I select rails, how the pathing works. It just kind of draws a line on a nav mesh on the ground and takes you to that next spot.
That's cool. So it's like it's not an instant teleportation like so many other point and click locomotion styles in VR.
Right, exactly. We actually don't have any modes that snap your body from one place to another. No matter what mode you're in, your body always moves, so it can always be shot.
Yeah. No, good, because it can be jarring.
Totally.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So
Yes.
if we're looking at the maps pedestal here, we actually have over 50 community-made maps already in beta. We integrated with this web paintball game called 2D Paintball. We took their editor and wrote a parser for their output format, so you can go create maps online and just throw them in a certain folder, and then you'll have them available. So people have made everything from like national and regional league maps to some of these more interesting maps where they use the same bunker set as Pro Paintball, but stack things on top of each other, or build little trenches or mazes or whatever it may be. Um, the World Cup map was one of the first official maps we made, and what we did there was we actually got a booth at the Professional Paintball World Cup in November, and we mapped their layout to scale for that tournament and took it to the event, and people could play one-on-one in our booth, and each day we would release heat maps from the previous day's kills to which obstacles had the best kill ratio, had the least deaths, the most prevalent shot lanes across the field, and people were like printing them out and taking them to kind of research their strategy.
Oh, I love stuff like that. I like that you guys are super focused on stats, because like I think any good shooter should have a ridiculous amount of statistics.
I totally agree, man.
Your user progression system is your stats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. That's great to hear. And I like that you're like rewarding your alpha players with like swag. So like if
we have awesome alpha players though.
We're super into our community.
Fantastic.
Like the coolest group. And we got about 500 people in our Discord now, and we got maybe 50 that are super engaged. Like we talk almost every day. They give us feedback, go hunting for bugs, everything.
Sure.
Yeah. So there I just kind of, ran up and down the field to show you what that looks like. And then you can kind of mute it from here. The rest is just raw gameplay from one of our Thursday night alpha tests that we do. And you'll just see me die a lot. Hopefully I'll get a kill or two for while it's playing in the background, but you'll kind of get to see how a full match looks.
So, there's a lot of VR headsets out there now and platforms. I'm just kind of curious, where can people play this? Which, like, I think you had mentioned Oculus and Vive, but like, where can people play this or download it?
Yeah, Tanner, I'll throw that one over to you, man.
Right now, we support running on anything that's compatible with Steam VR. So, if you got a Vive headset, if you've got a Oculus headset that'll work out of the box with it, you can use a Quest, but you got to use a link cable for now.
That's right.
We plan on supporting Quest, but when we can get to that will depend on how our launch goes. So it's in the future, but unscheduled as of now.
Well, I think the link cable's great for Quest owners, because there's some games that I don't think I don't want to denigrate the Quest too much, but its battery life's not great.
Yeah.
So it's like being plugged in actually helps that thing in a lot of cases, I think. So it's not a big deal to me that I would have to. Obviously, I have a Valve Index, so that's how I'm going to play this. But
you can see from our art style, we have intentionally made it efficiently rendering in preparation for low-end hardware like that.
No,
we
totally.
have people who play with us on very old hardware, so it'll play. If your computer can run VR, it'll run this game well.
No, and I think that's really smart from a dev perspective to do, to make it in a way where it's not going to be super hard to port it over to Quest, where some other studios make these very high-end VR experiences that just do not work on Quest at all, because it's like impossible to strip down. Even a game like Beat Saber to run on it was hard, so it's like, and it's because there's constraints to a mobile platform like that. So I don't blame you folks, especially because this is going to be an early access title, or is it already in early access, or yes, no?
We're about to be early access.
About to be.
Jesse has the actual date.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't told anyone the date yet in case I get scared and delay it. But yeah, basically, should be within the next month. We'll see it drop for early access. and it's going to drop on Vive Port first. We have a 30-day exclusivity on the Vive Port store, and then it's going to be everywhere else right after that.
Nice. That old Nintendo strategy of never saying your release date until like the day before.
Yeah. Stay
You
tuned.
can't delay a game if you never announce the release date.
Exactly right.
I
You
think
can't
that's
call it a scam if we didn't tell you when it was going to come out. Yeah.
that's a good point.
I'd love to butt in with a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Obviously, there are a wide array of VR headsets on the market. The headset as a peripheral itself is still nowhere near what I would say completely mature. New upgrades are coming along all the time. Things are being tried. If Giant Scam had enough stroke in the industry that you could directly influence advancements in the design of headsets or change things about the way you have now, what would you ask the manufacturers, or what type of features or alterations would you like to see made, even maybe from a user perspective, not just on the development side?
That's a good one.
Yeah, you want to go first? I think we both probably got opinions about this one.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how different our opinions are. Mine would be on the extra amount of features, because with any game that you're releasing, you have to target the minimum hardware that's going to be common for everyone. So like some controllers have 10 buttons on them, but we can't use all those buttons because we got to support an index controller, a Vive controller, a Rift controller. So we have to limit the number of inputs we can do. That's normal. We've all gotten used to working that way. But some of the new features that I've had a chance to work with on other projects were eye tracking in a VR headset would be game changing for menus and user interactions. And also, I've played with before a consumer grade EEG that did very simple brain activity scan just by putting a headset on your head. Felt like a pair of earphones. Having those two extra forms of input when building these immersive environments could just be amazing. Unlock a ton of new potential there. So I think we're on track as far as quality goes. And I would expect the common answer to be like I want higher resolution screens, or I want faster refresh rates. I think we're at a pretty good place there. It can always get better, but I'm happy with the current state of things on that front.
That was a really good answer. I'm gonna follow up though. I got to give some variety. Yeah, for me, it's keep going the way of getting rid of the wires. So improving the wireless tech, I think, is going to be huge. Keep experimenting with things like Vive trackers that let us do more points of reference in your play area for tracking. So like right now, I've got some Vive trackers in that I want to strap to my feet so I can have full body IK, right? Like I want to keep doing stuff like that. There's actually a guy, and I can send you guys a link to this later. There's a guy in Australia who has rigged up a 3D printed mount to where he can put a Vive tracker on top of a paintball gun and then wire the output of the trigger into the Vive wand. So he's playing with a paintball gun, which is pretty cool.
But he turned a paintball gun into a controller for your game?
For a like single player simulation that he wrote, and then me and him are collaborating on supporting it for Snapshot.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's called Grit Paintball by Deadbolt Custom Works. I'll send you all a link.
The Vive tracker is like the Wild West of VR right now. I love the stuff that people are doing with it. And I love that you're mentioning foot presence to me, because that's like my biggest beef with FPS in general. Like, you look down in Duke Nukem 3D, he has feet. You look down in COD now, you don't have feet anymore.
Isn't that weird?
That was one of the biggest things we had a problem with in our game, because it's very much bunker to bunker gunfights. And early on in our testing, when we first started using the IK system, we were so happy to have it in there and working that we didn't tune it enough before we started having people playing on it, and people's elbows were sticking out sideways. They had a really wide stance, and people, it was like, I was behind that bunker, and how did I get shot? And I was like, well, your elbow was sticking out. So now we've got it really tuned in and tucked in tightly. But adding that foot tracking in, or even like a belt with a Vive tracker on it, would give us another point of reference. It could really help. You have your body where you think your body is when you're playing. That's helpful.
Yeah, I think I tried a Mario Kart VR thing in Japan, where they had sandals that had Vive trackers on them, so each of your feet had them, and they did have a belt too. So it's weird. Like, the more points of reference, the better the tracking gets, and I imagine that another thing that would probably be good is to somehow shrink the size of these trackers because they're pretty
they're pretty
big
beefy.
right now. You look kind of silly when you're wearing them.
Totally. Yeah, I'd go that direction for all VR hardware too.
Sure.
Just pulling the profile in a little bit. We're getting
You know,
there.
and I think it's interesting to know that like there are some big companies that are in the VR space now, and like Facebook, they're in it. They're not going to stop. And it seems like Valve's very similar with their love of VR, and they're not giving up anytime soon. There's a couple, Apple seems to be working on stuff. My dog's literally snorting behind me right now.
All good, man. The joys from working from home.
Apple is kind of quietly working on things. I don't know if you've been paying attention to any of the stuff they're doing. They've definitely seemed to be focusing more on AR right now. But they acquired Next VR, just recently. Do you think they're working on something over there, or would you like to see them enter the space?
I think they're probably working on something. As a computer scientist, software engineer, I don't love Apple products in most cases. I'm not sure I would like to see how proprietary they make some form of VR hardware.
Yeah.
We're already dealing with supporting enough systems as it is. But imagine all right, yeah, now you have the Apple headset with a new cable and port that no one's ever heard of, and yeah, it's just like the same story.
So reading between the lines here, you had a Zune and not an iPod, right?
Actually, I had my friend bought me this as a joke. It's like the world's largest MP3 player. So I had in those iPod days an MP3 player that was about that large and held like 5 songs on it.
Nice.
No, I understand your point about Apple being proprietary, and also like the fight going on in the App Store right now, with the 30% cut that they're taking, and what Tim Sweeney's been doing on the Epic Game Store, trying to fight for devs to get a larger cut of the revenue. And I think that Apple is not the most friendly to devs right now, especially indie devs. So I don't know.
That's true. That was a bit of a shocker kind of coming into game development, is seeing how prevalent that 30% cut is across the different marketplaces. Super common.
Yeah, it is. And it's arbitrary. It's not, it's not. And Tim Sweeney did a really good job when he announced the Epic Game Store of explaining the costs of selling something and how he got to his number. I think it's 12.5% or whatever. I appreciate that fight that's going on right now. But yeah, I imagine that would be like a whole other. Why I'm worried is that this period reminds me of when Microsoft was working on the tablet PC for like 10 years, right? And every year they would show you this tablet PC, and it wasn't that great. It wasn't perfect yet, but it got better every year. And like Oculus, every year, here's like this new thing that we're doing, and Apple's kind of sitting there being very quiet watching them. I'm worried that something similar is about to happen in this space. But you know what?
They're learning too much. They're learning too much from other people's attempts.
Yeah, but like on top of this, you have PSVR, which is a great platform. Like a lot of people can play it. It's like I think it's still the largest platform in VR right now.
I'd imagine so. Yeah, like it's just so accessible. You don't have to have a console and a gaming PC.
So you guys looking at that maybe?
Yeah, we have an idea there. We actually met with them at GDC 2019, and they're like, "Yeah, looks cool. Let's do it." But it's been so focused on the PC release for the past 6 months or so that what we're saying now is kind of similar to Quest. Like, hey, let's have a successful PC launch, then we can reinvest into those other platforms, and we'd be more than happy to get on PSVR, whether it's this generation or the next one. And expand that user base.
That's a really good point you make too right now, is that it's a really weird year to make a bet on PS4.
Totally.
Because everyone's kind of going to be shifting over to PS5 soon. They haven't really mentioned, they said that it's going to be compatible with PSVR, but one would think that maybe there's a PSVR 2, like a 2.0 version of that headset. So I could understand that logic of right now, Steam is the safe place to be still. And it has this, you have this wide base of HMDs that work with the Steam VR platform.
Yeah, which is great. And Vive Store games support Steam VR games, so we don't have to do like a crazy migration to their SDK or anything. So like these first 2 launches should be super compatible and pretty straightforward.
We had a comment in the chat from Rum Study that says the 30% cut made a lot of sense early on because the cost associated with merchant fees, chargebacks, and the cost of hosting. But the percentage is not kept pace with the reduction in both of those fixed costs.
Yeah. No, but I don't think Apple ever ran the App Store at a loss. Because like they had to create the App Store kicking and screaming. Remember, it was all going to be HTML5 web apps.
I made some of those web apps before the App Store.
You remember that nonsense?
Yeah.
Steve Jobs was like, it's going to be web apps. Don't worry about this. You don't need a store. And then like 8 months later, he's like, and we call it App Store, and I invented it. You know, so it's that.
It
that
works
typical-
surprisingly like Steam worked.
Yeah,
Well-
it was the exact same thing as Steam.
From a developer's perspective, is there anything you could see platform holders offering as a value add for developers' benefit that could ever justify the cost that it's currently going, or you think that it has to come down at some point, regardless? Like I know, like in this case of Steam, there's a lot of the Steamworks features that seem really awesome on the consumer-facing side of it, but do those things actually matter to someone that's on the development side, or is it just kind of whatever?
I think it's less enticing for me as a VR developer where I'm going to have to release on multiple marketplaces regardless. Like I can use the Steamworks leaderboards SDK, for example, but it's only going to be for your Steam friends and like the people that are playing on Steam. That's why we have this cross-platform stat thing going on. For me, and of course, Tanner, I want you to jump in on this one as well. For me, it's visibility. Like I'm paying 30% to get buried under 500,000 other titles on most of these marketplaces. So if you can incentivize that cut into some guaranteed visibility, driving traffic to our homepage, then that makes it a little bit more worth it for me.
It seems like Epic is doing that. They haven't been doing it that much in the VR space yet. So that's kind of unfortunate to see on their part. But it seems like out of everyone, the whole every week here's the free game on Epic Game Store thing. It seems to be helping. But I don't know. Maybe stuff like that. Maybe the hope is that Steam actually changes. Like they haven't really done a whole lot yet in response to this, what Epic's doing from a competition standpoint.
Yeah.
No, so you kind of showed out in the beginning of the gameplay footage you have here, all those different levels that you can choose from. So is there a level editor that you've made available to players, or how does that work?
Yeah, we're cheating. Right now, we basically let you use a level editor for a different game, and we parse the output of that level editor and make it work for Snapshot.
What a scammy thing to do.
That's
What a
right.
very
While
giant
we're working
scam.
on our
That's
level
right.
editor, yeah.
I listen. I emailed the guy. Okay, it's fine.
I feel like you guys need robber baron hats and cigars for this. Like, yeah,
Not a
see,
scam, not
we
a
use
scam.
the other level editor. See,
Yeah, it works though. I mean, it bought us time to focus on other features before release. And again, like people are using it. We have over 50 maps already in the game that'll be there on day one.
And the reason we did this was because we had community members like banging down the door saying, "Hey, how do I make a map? How do I make a map?" We had one person who had some technical background, Shiva, who's the head of the leaderboard still. I think was the guy who made the first maps for us, and he wrote the JSON by hand, asking, what is this? What kind of fields, what kind of properties go in this field name, and he manually wrote out a few layouts, and then so Jesse took the time to adapt this other game's map layouts to work in ours. But we fully intend to have our own map editor, mainly to track the stats properly.
Yeah, would that be an editor that runs? Because right now it currently runs outside of your app, right?
Yeah.
Do you see that still being the case in the future, that you would have like a companion editor, or would it be part of the game?
So this is something that I'm actively already started working on, and we have a website, snapshotvr.com, where you go sign up for your account. You see your profile. The stats are a little slim at the moment, but we're going to be showing like individual match stats, being able to track your history. And as we get into there, that is your web presence where you can go on and edit your maps, edit your layouts online. And
Okay.
there's I think we will eventually have an in-game map editor, but that's probably not where we're going to start at.
Yeah, I think it'd be kind of it's two different things
Yeah,
almost. So no,
yeah.
I was just
Because
curious how you guys
making a map in Snapshot, you're really doing an arena layout. So you're saying here's a pyramid bunker here, here's a can bunker here, and here's the positions of them. You're not actually exporting 3D models and textures and things like that. So it's not a full game dev experience like modding some games are. You're just
Mhm.
organizing some data. Yeah.
Are there ramps in this, or are you on a flat playing field the entire time?
So far, you're on a flat playing field, but
Okay.
we're going to experiment with some verticality and some layouts coming up.
Yeah, because I think that's I'm sure Jesse, just even in like actual paintball, verticality is something that is not always there. It depends on whatever scenario you're in, right? Whatever area you're
Right.
actually at.
Yeah. The pro scene standardizes it to that one size all flat. But there are many facets of competitive paintball, and some are more scenario based, and you're up in forts, multi-level forts or
Yeah,
whatever, or up on a hill even. Yeah, I think we'll play with some of that for sure. We had one mapper try to modify the JSON for a map file and like turn a brick kind of like 30 degrees to see what would happen. And of course, it broke completely. But I like
Right.
that people are trying.
Yeah, because I see this and I'm like, I could see people trying to recreate levels from other FPSs.
Yeah,
Uh,
totally.
for instance, when I see this, I'm like, I want to play Hang 'em High in this game from Halo. You know what I mean? Like that classic but that has some elevation change, obviously.
I'm going to be
Right.
rapping tonight.
But no, cool. I was just kind of curious what your thoughts are on that. I'm really interested in this locomotion. When did you come up with that? Or because you were calling it a puppet?
Yeah.
And then you were this is proprietary to your game, right? Or you guys
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah, as far
that's
as we know.
yeah. When did you come up with this? Because I love this. This is really interesting.
Yeah, this was one of the first features I tried to figure out for Snapshot. I actually wasn't going to go the paintball influenced route at first. It was just going to be any other, fast-paced shooter. But I was like, I really don't want to be sick the entire year or 2 years I'm developing this game. So I was just going to come up with something that didn't move my camera. And at first, I actually had it to where like you point and click where you want to go, and it moves you to kind of like a spectator box view, like an above third person view. That gives you a little bit more visibility of the field and moves you there. And then we thought, that doesn't feel quite right, so we changed it to I stay in place in my camera rig, and then my player moves, and that works pretty well as long as you have the option to press a button and catch up. Whether it's snap to every half a second or just I made it halfway, I better see what the new angle is or whatever. And then once people were using that snap to, they said, why don't you just give it to where it always moves with the camera? So then it's like, okay, that's Rails. And then of course you have the community that's I'm not going to play this game unless I can use a joystick and look like a fool. So there it is.
Can you play this with keyboard and mouse? Is that even possible?
We have one of our libraries, our tools for Unity has a VR simulator where it's like you can control one hand at a time with your mouse, and it's really bare bones. It's really just for testing.
Yeah, sure.
We have logged into games that were going on to check on things or test things before, and you've gotten some weird reactions from people as they watch you walk around that way.
Yeah, that's got to be very weird looking.
Yeah. If we
no,
ever
we-
went that direction, we would release another game called Snapshot non-VR.
Yeah.
It would,
2D.
it just like this is a VR game. This is the non-VR version instead of the other way around.
Did you guys ever think about doing that?
It's top of
It's
mind.
discussed from time to time.
Let's not kid ourselves here.
It's not. I love VR. I'm just saying that FPS games uniquely transfer to 2D screens from VR, I think, differently than other games would.
Totally agree. Yeah,
It's also a situation where you can create a larger player base if you do something like crossplay between the two things. But yeah, that's a whole other ball of wax.
Yeah. Crossplay would be a little funky, just like from the nature of reaction time and like how you experience this type of shooter.
It would be interesting to experiment with, though.
Yeah. See if Shiva can beat a halfway decent PC player.
Have you guys considered adding in elements of hentai visual novels to get better visibility on Steam?
You know, it's
Never
tempting
say never.
with how popular they are.
Yeah, but these cosmetic add-ons, I mean, endless possibility.
Yeah, once the American Gladiators DLC comes out, you're not going to need to do that.
Yeah, we'll be fine. We'll be rich, like all the other VR developers. We loaded.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So what have you done with all of your VR money since the last game?
Yeah, all the money we lost. That's the nature of VR, man. It's like so hard to make as much with a successful VR game as like a pretty bad regular game makes. But yeah,
it's the amount of time and work that goes into making the game.
that's a big part of it. And then the community is just so small. Like the potential market share is so small.
Yeah, the addressable market. But the good news about the VR addressable market is that it's growing every day now.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it was so frequently crapped on, like, I don't know, 5 years ago. So many people poo-pooed VR that it was dead on arrival. And it's not. Like, maybe there was a lot of VCs in 2015 that were flooding this market with money, and they probably had some absurd growth expectations for the valuations happening in that year. But like, we now know what the growth pattern was. We know how many of these different platforms have sold. I feel like it wasn't the expectations of 2015, but the people who were doomsayers were dead wrong.
Totally.
And I think that's the good news for VR. And that's why, like, the people who are developing VR games in 2020 actually want to make VR games, where it felt like there was a gold rush maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Some of those Gold Rush titles were really fun, though.
Oh yeah,
Sure.
no question. Like, there's some brilliant things that came out in that first year, and like some kings were made. I mean, Alchemy Labs sold to Google for God knows how much. Like,
yeah, it's pretty wild.
So it's like I think that, and hell, Apple just bought Next VR this year, so I feel like there's still a very interesting long-term story for this medium, and it's an undeniable new medium. So I think that that's going to be the case in any new medium, that it doesn't have the addressable market of a flat screen TV or a smartphone does right now. And I think that was the flaw of the logic in 2015 a lot of the time, was that this is the next smartphone. I'm like, hold your horses on that. But
it got a little ahead of themselves, but they're not, long term, they're not too far off.
No, they're not. And I think that, like, we've corrected now. Like, the industry as a whole is kind of a little more sober than it was 5 years ago. And like, we're seeing well thought out games come to market, because that flood that we saw when the App Store just released, or when Oculus Home just released, there was a flood of really mediocre stuff that was priced too high. I think even on iPhone when that happened. So
yeah,
I feel like that first wave is over now, and we're in like a really good place. Just as a VR consumer, I feel like there's better games being released now than there were 5 years ago. And the companies 100%. That make it doesn't feel like you guys are a giant scam. It feels like you guys are actually trying to make a cool game, and you engage your community and you listen, which is I think also cool about the grassroots nature of VR, is that when you do have a game that people care about, you have people that like are rallying around you. So it's a lot like those old days of the PC gaming in the early 90s, I think.
You guys kind of suck at scamming.
Yeah, we're working on that, we're trying.
Yeah, do you guys have like a quarterly meeting where we figure out how to scam better? Because come on.
Yeah, we do have, if anyone's interested. No one's taken me up on it yet. You could be the first. On our Big Cartel page, there is an option to buy 11 copies of Chop It for the price of 10. And if you sell the 10 to your friends, you will make a profit buying our game Chop It. Just an idea. It's available. I'll send you 11 Steam keys. Do whatever you want with them.
11 for the price of 10?
Pretty good deal.
It's not bad.
That isn't bad, considering that most of the 4-packs on Steam are gone now.
Yeah,
There's no good way to buy in bulk.
exactly.
Could be losing money by not doing this.
We could be losing money by not doing this. Damn. This is
I'm losing money by you not doing this.
This is a more interesting proposition than buying most stocks in the stock market right now.
Yeah, I hear that, man.
Yeah, this should turn out better than when you bought all that cruise ship stock 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, right. When I bought all that Royal Caribbean stock.
Well, before we wrap up, I wanted to ask one more question about what you guys thought about the release of Half-Life Alyx and what it may mean for hardware adoption, visibility on the market, things like that. As a high-profile game that turned out to be not terrible.
Take us home, Tanner.
Well, I'm a little embarrassed that I actually haven't had a chance to play it yet. I am very looking forward to it, though.
You guys are working.
I have been, yeah, been a little busy, but was really impressed with just the reception that it's gotten so far. And it's, I knew I was going to want to play it, whether I heard good reviews or bad reviews, just being a fanboy that I am. But now I really want to play it, so I'm trying to carve out some time here.
It's amazing, and it's that typical Valve thing where they built a new engine, and they're like, "Oh crap! I guess we should make a game."
Yeah, I guess we'll just let everyone have it, and then they can make their own things.
Yeah,
it's sick.
No, it's great, and like it got me to plug in my index, and I was completely immersed in it. But yeah, I have these bouts where I like get really into VR for a few months, and then I kind of like take a break from it, and then I come back to it, and it's usually driven by whatever games come out for it,
Totally.
But there are some. What I like about this game is I could play this once a day, like for 10, 15, 20 minutes, and there's not a lot of VR games like that outside of Beat Saber or something. Like there's not. There's like a lot, especially with these shooter games. Like they tend to be these like bigger, story-driven things, and I'm like, I kind of just want to shoot some stuff and then be on my way.
Yeah.
The market's going to explode once they figure out a way to make it easy to play VR on the toilet. So when you're taking, breaks,
hey, we have
a match or two in
seated play area support. All right.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the future.
Put your sensors in the bathroom, hang them on the shower rod. You're good to go.
That's awesome.
So there you go. You can play Snapshot VR while on the can.
Boom. Coin it.
There's your Shacknews box quote.
There it is.
Well,
erase the Steam page. Just put that one line in there.
Well, Jesse and Tanner, I want to thank you guys so much for stopping by the Shacknews Twitch channel to chat with us today.
For sure.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Wishlist this game? Is that what we do right now?
Yeah.
Wishlist
on Viveport. It'll be on Viveport first. 30 days after, whatever that day is in the next month or so. It'll be on Steam, probably the Oculus store as well. Wish lists help us a ton, actually. So we would really appreciate that.
Yeah, so wishlist this. It costs you nothing to do that. So go out there, wishlist this. Thank you guys so much. You can follow them at Giant Scam on Twitter, not on Facebook, because that's a garbage platform. And they won't, like, you guys aren't even allowed to call yourselves Giant Scam on Facebook, right?
Yeah, like we have a Giant Scam Industries page on Facebook, but it's scam with a K because they won't let us use the word scam in our tag.
Good God.
Yeah. Instagram, Giant Scam, Discord, snapshotvr.com. Join our Discord.
Wait, Instagram's also Giant Scam?
With a C, though. I know.
With a C?
It doesn't make any sense.
That's a Facebook subsidiary.
Yeah, I know.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. One's more progressive, I guess.
I guess. Same company. Whatever.
You wouldn't expect that from a company that applies the same rules to everyone all the time and always has.
Valid point.
I don't know what happened. Yeah.
Oh man. But yeah, so wishlist this game. Costs you $0. Helps them out. And it
makes us very happy.
And it makes them happy, and it'll help you guys with the Steam algorithm, because Lord knows that thing is a mess.
Yeah, dude, I'll do you one better. First person to email me, jesse@giantscam.com, proof that you wishlisted the game, I'll make a custom cosmetic for you in the game.
Oh my God.
Oh, dang.
Did you hear that, folks?
Let's go.
Okay. Well, you heard it here, and we're gonna clip that, and we're gonna send that to the internet.
Tanner's gonna be busy.
Awesome. But once again, thanks guys, and yeah, we already got all the links in the chat for everyone who's been watching. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks Chris for running the stream with me, and
Thanks, Chris.
and yeah, thank you Tanner, thank you Jesse. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you, man.
Much appreciated. Good times. Let's do it again.
Awesome, for sure. Yeah, maybe when the game launches, we'll have to play some games on stream or something.
Let's do it. Sounds good.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow with some more awesome streams because that's what we do here at Shacknews. You can follow us on Twitch. You can subscribe to us on Twitch. You can use Twitch Prime with your Amazon Prime to give us Jeff Bezos' money for free. You could go to shacknews.com and click on my dog and subscribe to Shacknews Mercury for as little as $1 a month to support content like this, which you should do. Come on, it's excellent content.
All right, as we wrap up, I'm going to play the trailer that we had at the beginning one more time for anybody that may have joined us in progress. So you guys have a great day, and we'll catch you next time.
Kill one off the Doritos. I'm feeling it.
D1. I got D1. Oh, what a snap. D1, D1, D1. Watch the W.
I just need that hat now to complete the set. Got one off the snake. Good. Give you one. Kill the snake corner. So take corner to home. Kill the home.
Oh, there it is.
Wow,
Headshot on the move, baby.
Everyone do it once.
Yeah.